Some people have the concern that maybe the law of attention doesn't work. And the reason is that they've tried putting their attention on some desired outcome, and then they say, hey, it does not seem to have manifested in my life. I guess this whole business just doesn't work. Well, the law of attention does work. It's always working. It's just that most of the time you are unconscious of what you're giving your attention to, and therefore you fail to recognize that you are always working with that law. Now, you can help yourself to become more aware of this with a simple exercise. You could get a notebook and every day take a few minutes, let's say 10 minutes, to just write exactly what is happening in your mind, what you are giving your attention to, the thoughts that are passing through your mind. Do not censor yourself. Just write what is happening in your mind, even if you don't like it. The purpose of this exercise is self-honesty. When you look at this over weeks or months, you will start to see that it is true that what you put your attention on is what you get in your life. So the law of attention does work. Most people are working it unconsciously and usually not to their benefit. It is possible to work with it to your benefit. However, it's also important to understand that there are other variables at play that can influence the outcome. You see, in a world in which there was nothing that could possibly interfere, then it would work that as long as you just sustained your attention on the thing that you want for long enough, you would get the outcome. However, what actually happens for most people is that there are things that interfere, that divert the attention and then siphon off the energy so that the energy does not go fully to the desired outcome. Instead, it goes to other things, usually things that you don't want. And this is where many people get hung up. So if you pay attention, what you will start to notice is that when you start to give your attention to your desired outcome, you might be able to give your attention to that for a short time. But then other things will come up in consciousness that will then grab your attention and divert the energy away from what it is that you want. Usually it's a handful of things. One very big factor is limiting beliefs. Another is the fears of what you don't want. And then a third category would be petty habits of jealousy, envy, frustration, anger, resentment, and so forth. So let's just briefly cover those things so that you can understand. I'll give you an example. So let's imagine that my desired outcome is $1 million. So I start by attempting to put my attention on that. I have $1 million. In my imagination, I have $1 million. I put my attention on that briefly. But then what happens is limiting beliefs will start to come up. There might be a limiting belief that says, rich people are greedy, and I don't value greed, so therefore I derail myself. I cease to give my attention fully to what it is that I want because now I have a conflict. I don't want to be greedy. Only, rich people are greedy. I don't want to be like that. Maybe a limiting belief might come up that says, people in my family can't have money. maybe a limiting belief comes up that says, I have nothing of any value. Therefore, it's not right for me to have money. These are just examples. So many possibilities could be there. So as those limiting beliefs come up, if I don't release them, then they get the attention and therefore the energy, not the desired outcome. So even though I might think that I'm giving my attention to my desired outcome, in fact, my attention is going to the limiting beliefs. Now let's consider fears of what I don't want. So I say I imagine in my imagination I have $1 million, but then what happens is I'm actually afraid of being poor. So in part, my desire for $1 million is fueled by my fear of being poor. So I'm trying to put my attention on having $1 million, but what's happening is my attention is being diverted to my fear of being poor, my fear of having great amounts of debt, my fear of having to work really hard and barely make enough money to even scrape by, my fear that I'll end up in debtor's prison, my fear that I'll end up homeless. So my attention is being diverted to the things that I fear. And then, as I said, there are the petty things that will come up. They'll just come up as if out of nowhere, the resentments from 30 years ago of how that person treated me wrongly, of that injustice that was done, how angry I am, how hurt I am, how traumatized I am, how bad the world is, how unfair the world is. These kinds of things can come up as well, and instead of the energy being sustained toward my desired outcome, the energy is diverted to those things. So even though I might think that I'm giving my attention to what it is that I want, perhaps only 1% of the attention actually goes to that. Meanwhile, the rest of it is going to all of these other things. This is why I recommend to people to release all of those other things. Because when you release all those other things, they're not there to draw your attention away from what it is that you want. Then it's possible to sustain your attention on what you want. Now, many people are afraid to acknowledge all of these other things because they're afraid that if they were to acknowledge them, they would be giving energy to them as if they weren't already giving energy to them. You see, that's the thing. They're already giving energy to all these things. So to acknowledge them, to make a list of all of the things that are interfering with you sustaining your attention on what you want, will help you to release them. It will not harm you in any way. Certainly not any more than you're already harming yourself. So don't be afraid to make a list. Just make the list of the limiting beliefs, of the fears of what you don't want, and of the petty things, so that you can free yourself of them. Now, it's beyond the scope of this video for me to give you step-by-step instructions on how to release all those things. I will say that I do a couple of things. One is that I do cover those topics in other videos. Also, if you simply have the intention to do so and you persist in that, you will succeed. It's largely a matter of two things. One is to recognize the needless, useless pain and harm that it causes you to continue to hold on to those things. That's one. That's very important. The second thing is simply to recognize all of those things are happening in your mind only. Even though you think that there's something else out there objectively, there's nothing out there objectively. It's all happening in your mind. You are free to let it go. It's that simple, actually, just to recognize it for what it is. It's not actually real. You have invented it. You've assigned the meaning and you get to liberate yourself. So when you recognize those things, then a clear intention to let it go is sufficient. Until then, other techniques are necessary. And I do teach other techniques in programs that I offer. So if you're interested in that, you might want to check those things out. But as I said, the most important thing is to acknowledge the things that are interfering and then to have the clear intention to let them go. As long as you persist in that sincerely, you will succeed. If you have any sincere questions about this, I welcome you to post those in the comments. And although I don't promise that I will respond to every question, I will do my best. Also, if you have not yet downloaded the free ebook that I offer on my website, in which I cover 5 of the fundamental laws of creation, including the law of attention, I recommend that you do so. You can get that at joeylott.com. I'll provide the link in the description. It is free and it is a valuable read that will help you to better understand yourself and the structure of your experience. That's all for now. Blessings to you. Bye for now.